I'm giving out one play for every single fight this weekend at UFC Qatar. If you're new here, this isn't a prediction channel. We're not going through and giving you who I think is going to win each fight. I'm literally finding one bet, and I'm giving it to you guys for every single fight, no matter what. Now, last week, YouTube would not let me upload this video for whatever reason. I think we're in the clear now. If you missed it, it was on Twitter, it was on Instagram, and we absolutely crushed it. Once again, hit 9 of the plays, only missed 4. That's 3 weeks in a row of absolutely crushing it. So next week, there's no UFC event. We got extra time to put in the work, and I'm going to do a bigger giveaway next week. So make sure you drop the comment, drop a like. I'm going to pick one person down below to send that to. So let's get right into it, boys. You know I hate wasting time. First fight on this card is Buouyo taking on Denzel Freeman. Now, the one thing that jumped off the page to me when I'm watching tape and when I'm looking at their records is that Buouyo, however I'm just going to call him Merrick. He hasn't fought the highest levels of competition. And not only that, the competition that he has fought, I mean, he's beat them all in the first round. We got no idea what he looks like when he gets outside of that first round. I mean, look at some of his opponents, man. His last opponent, but right before we got into the UFC, was 3-5. Before that, 13-12. Before that, 6-4. Before that, 2-6. And before that, 0-2. So, you know, I don't really know what to expect exactly from him. I think he's going to have to get takedowns and work from there. I think he's going to be, a little bit outmatched on the feet against a Denzel Freeman. And especially, with Freeman, he's got power in the hands for sure. We've seen him hurt people on the feet. The guy is a former Marine in the United States military. Just a bad dude all around and has a very high-level wrestling base too. So, I mean, if Merrick wants to go out there and wrestle him, I think Merrick's the first one to get tired, and I actually think Merrick's the first one that gets put on his back if they get into a wrestling match here. So, I don't want to take him at these big underdog odds. But, we're talking about two wrestlers here. I'm going to go over 1.5 rounds. I'm not really confident in this, but, when both these guys are making their debut, it's hard to pick a side, especially when the odds are the way they are in this fight on the money line. So, yeah, man, you're talking about two guys who like to grapple, two guys who are, watching tape offensively. They're pretty good at it. I think this could be a little bit of a stalemate through the first round and a half. So, we're getting plus money on over 1.5. That's what we're rocking with for the first fight. All right, next one up, we're getting Shimrock taking on Aliev, Aliev. And this is another one, man, where we got a debut fighter. There's going to be 6 debut fighters on this card. Shimrock is one of them. I kind of think he's a very one-dimensional guy at times in there. He's going to look to take your back. He's going to work the jiu-jitsu on the ground, and he's gotten away with that and looked pretty good in the promotions he's fought in so far. The only problem with it here against the guy like Aliev is that Aliev has that style as well. He wants to take you down. He wants to work from there. He's more of a control damage type of fighter. He looks to get in dominant position. He's going to rain down elbows and shots before he's looking for submissions. And I think that's a style where if Shimrock can't get a submission game going, I think he's going to start to get tired out. I think that Shimrock could possibly find an early submission. I just don't like it whatsoever against such a good grappler and Aliev, who's probably going to have dominant position in most aspects of this fight. So, all in all, we're getting 2 grapplers again. Sometimes when these cards go to Abu Dhabi, now it's in Qatar or Saudi Arabia, we do get a lot of wrestlers. We do get a lot of fights getting extended and pushed long. So I'm going to rock with it once again, man. I'm going to take over 2.5 rounds here. I don't know what else to say. I mean, you're getting a guy in Shimrock who is going to want it on the mat. You're getting a guy in Aliev who has been proven to just kind of, control guys for the duration of fights. You look at his record, 10-0, 2 knockouts, 8 decisions, and that's usually the path he takes. So that's what I'm rocking with on this fight. I am going to say, though, before we go any further, this card, it was a little bit hard to get a beat on because we haven't seen a lot of these guys at this level, and it's kind of the theme of the card until we get all the way up to the main card here. So this is another one here with Ryan Loder taking on Ismail Nardiev. Ryan Loder 1-1 in the UFC, and when he came in and fought Robert Valentin, he was put in a really bad position right away. Got his back taken. He was in a rear naked choke. But if you remember back to that, Robert Valentin was actually hurt, had a broken arm, I believe, wasn't able to squeeze, get that choke cinched up. and it cost him the fight there because round 2 he gets his back taken and finished by Ryan Loder. So, or didn't get his back take. Sorry, he did at one point, but he ended up getting the ground and pound loss there for Valentin. So that was a good showing by Loder, but comes out and gets TKO'd by Almabaev. And now with the guy in Nardiev, I think he's a big physical guy for this division. I also think that he can wrestle a little bit and he can defend some of those takedowns from Loder. And if he keeps it on the feet, I mean, Ismail Nardiev is going to have a big striking advantage. We saw him do work against Jung Young Park in his fight against him before the eye poke and the whole controversy and getting, what should have been DQ'd. He kind of gassed out after that. But then we saw him put hands on Bruno Silva and looked like a phenomenal striker in that spot. My one big question with Nardiev is how's the cardio going to hold up? I don't think Loder is some, cardio machine by any means, but I do think, if you're comparing cardio between these two, Ryan Loder probably has that advantage. So that's what would make me nervous. But again, if this stays on the feet, I think Nardiev's probably finding the finish. If it goes longer, I think Loder's going to have those wrestling exchanges where he's going to have chances of finishing this fight. All in all, man, I'm taking Loder and Nardiev to end inside the distance by finish at -140. And that's going to be my official play for that fight. All right, next fight up. We're getting Beksat Almakhano and Alexandre Topuria. And this has been a back and forth, fight for everybody online this week. You got two guys who've shown pretty good skills. I'd say Beksat Almakhano has fought the higher levels of competition, got in there with Umar Nurmagomedov, and then knocked out Brad Katona, the only time Katona's been knocked out in his career. And you got a guy in Topuria who's obviously training with his brother, who's on the path to be one of the best fighters of all time. He's just 6-1. He doesn't have a ton of experience yet. He took that huge gap. 4 or 5 years? There was a little gap in between his first, 3 fights and his next 4. He just hasn't been super active. He doesn't have a ton of cage time whatsoever. And Beksat Almakhano, if he can keep the fight standing, I don't know if he's a technical striker like Topuria, but I know he's extremely fast and he does have a ton of power. So that's super interesting to me. I do think, Topuria showed he could get hit a little bit. He had pretty good defense against Colby Thickness, but as the fight went on, Thickness started landing a few more shots. I think Beksat is 2 times the striker that a Colby Thickness is too. So, when you're comparing guys like Umar Nurmagomedov and Topuria's wrestling here, I think it's night and day. I think it's going to be much tougher for Topuria to get this fight to the mat than it was for a guy like Umar. And for that reason, when this fight is standing, I think it's pretty even. I actually think Beksat might be throwing a little bit more volume here. So I'm going to fade the public here. I know everybody's going to be on Topuria because it's Ilya's brother. I'm actually going to go with the underdog in this spot. I'm going to take Beksat Almakhano. It might end up looking like an absolutely horrific pick, but it might also look genius too. We'll see what happens. I'd rather be holding that underdog ticket with a guy like Beksat Almakhano in Qatar with those judges over there. Yeah, I'll take my chances with the dog here. All right, next fight, Abdul Rahman Yakhyaev taking on Rafael Cerqueira. This is an insane line right now. -3,000 on Yakhyaev. And I'm not going to say I agree with it because -3,000 in an MMA fight is absolutely insane. But when you look at these guys next to each other, Cerqueira is a guy who has struggled at the UFC level. Yes, he gave Julius Walker a run for his money, whatever. But everybody else has just absolutely whooped his ass and done it very, very early. And Yakhyaev is better than some of those guys that have done that, in my opinion. Yakhyaev can wrestle. The guy's got slick striking and a ton of power, and he's aggressive too. I think this is bad news for Cerqueira. I think he's on this card to showcase a guy like Yakhyaev. Outside of him clipping Yakhyaev or pulling off something like that early, I think he's toast, man. I'm going to take Yakhyaev to win in round 1 at -150. I'll sprinkle on that round 2 just to cover my ass, but you know that the big money's coming if we hit this round 1. All right. Next fight, I actually think, by the way, I think Yakhyaev is going to be a serious prospect too in the UFC, so keep your eye out. All right, next fight, Alex Perez taking on Asu Almabaev. This is an interesting fight, man, because Asu had some hype behind him. He's 22-3. He's racked up a ton of wins, especially before the UFC. And when he came into the UFC, he's fought Ode Osborne. He's fought Mateus Nicolau, who I know is out of the UFC, but Mateus Nicolau was, a top 5 fighter at one time. He's fought Manel Kape, Jose Ochoa, super bright future. And he's been able to go out there and beat everybody but Manel Kape. Manel Kape got that TKO. But Manel is on another level of basically every striker outside of the top 5 in the UFC, or in that division, outside of the top 5. So, I can't really fault Asu Almabaev for that. He did, get a takedown or two. He's shown very, very good wrestling. It's hard to control flyweights, though. Everybody talks about his control and how his wrestling's good, but guys can get back up. I mean, these guys are scrappy, athletic, and super fast. It can be tough. Alex Perez, on the other hand, he's a little bit older now. He's only 33, but the guy has had bad injuries, torn ACLs, been away from the sport. He's 1-5 in his last 6, something like that, and has, taken some damage and been finished in some of these fights. I think Asu is going to be much, much faster than Alex Perez, and I think the pressure is going to start to get to him. So yeah, man, I'm not willing to go out there and pay minus 200, but I also don't think Asu is going to knock out Alex Perez or anything like that. So to get this price down a little bit, I took Asu Almabaev to win by submission or decision at minus 150. I think that's a much better line. You basically cover all of his win equity there. I would lean towards decision. Maybe he could pull off a sub because we've seen Perez sub before, but ultimately I think it's the pressure. I think it's the cage pushing. Might be boring, but I do think it's the speed advantage too for Asu that's going to give him dominant positions in this fight. All right. Oh, let's see. What do we got next, boys? By the way, these fights are early in the morning if you live in the U.S., California. Like the prelims are starting at 7 a.m., so make sure you check your app, see what time the prelims and main cards start for you because it's going to be a little bit different this week. All right, next fight up, Saeed Izagakhmaev. Yeah, Izagakhmaev taking on Nicholas Dalby. If this was like 2 years ago, I'd have been all over Nicholas Dalby because you guys already know he's got phenomenal cardio. The guy was super, super durable. And now he's 41 years old, coming off of a nasty knockout loss to Randy Brown. I don't love to see that just because of the age, for one. Like, once these older guys get cracked for the first time or get knocked out for the first time, it seems to be a slippery slope, and they start sliding down, and they not get worse, but they start losing a step. All of a sudden, they can't take the big shots like they once could. They can't defend takedowns over and over without getting a little bit more tired than they normally would. And where he's fighting a guy in Izagakhmaev who does have phenomenal cardio, has phenomenal wrestling as well, a little bit of power in the hands, but he's just relentless with his attacks. I think that's something that, Nicholas Dalby will get put on his back here, and maybe he gets back up to his feet a few times, but eventually I think he starts making mistakes. I think he starts taking and wearing damage a little bit, and I think at least through the first 2 rounds that Saeed is going to be able to implement his game fairly easily. Maybe Dalby comes on late. Maybe he's still got that cardio and durability, but we're talking about a new generation taking on a guy who is 1 foot out basically at 41 years old. So it's a tough one. I would love to see a big upset in this spot, but I just can't quite put my bet down on Dalby at plus 270 here. I've kind of looked back and forth though at this at the props on this fight because you're getting a decent number on any type of finish from Izagakhmaev. Decisions plus 150. I mean, does he knock out Dalby? I don't really think so. I think this is going to be more of that Asu Almabaev type of style where he's going to be very, very pressure heavy, takedown heavy, and possibly pull off that sub. But if not, if this goes to the judges' scorecards, I think he's just going to have far, far more control than his opponent here. So, let's see. Izagakhmaev to win by submission or decision, minus 170. That's what I'm rocking with here, if I'm being honest, man. I mean, you're getting that line down from over minus 200 to minus 170, and I think you cover a lot of what his win equity is in this fight too. So Izagakhmaev by sub or decision, minus 170. That's my official play for this fight. All right. Next fight, Luke Riley in Bogdan Grad. This is Luke Riley is a guy who's from Cage Warriors. I've seen some people super high on him. I've seen some people not at all. This is Paddy Pimblett's boy. He's a Scouser. This guy, if you watch him, I don't know if he's a Scouser or not, actually. I don't know why I said that. But if you watch this guy, his striking is very good. He's kind of a sniper, has good power, puts together good combinations. And when you watch Bogdan Grad, sometimes he gets caught a little flat-footed, and his head's not on the off the center line and he gets cracked down the middle. I don't think he has the best head movement whatsoever. And we've seen him knocked out before. I mean, we've seen him hurt on multiple occasions as well. That's something I think Luke Riley can expose here if he doesn't get taken down and put on his back. Like, that's the big issue for me in a spot like this, is that Bogdan Grad has shown that he has decent wrestling and he's very strong, has like that short, stockier base. And, Luke Riley, this is his debut off the Cage Warrior scene. The UFC is a much different level, especially as preparation goes, going into the octagon in front of a live crowd, debut jitters, all that stuff. That's something you got to worry about. I think this fight ends by knockout. Whether it's Luke Riley catching him clean at one time or Bogdan Grad just doing tons of damage, possibly catching him as well, because Bogdan, swings hard, has a little bit of pop too. So that's what I'm rocking with. You cover both guys here, as far as violence goes. Fight ends by knockout is -130, and that's what I'm going to rock with that fight. All right, next fight, Kyoji Horiguchi taking on Tagir Ulanbekov. This is another one, man. This was 6-7 years ago. I'd be all over Horiguchi. I mean, he's 35 years old now. He's had almost 40 fights. This will be his 40th pro fight, actually, and he's taken some damage. He's taken... I'm not going to say a ton of losses, only 5. But when he does lose, guys are able to take him down, put him on his back. And, a guy like Tagir Ulanbekov out of the Khabib camp, Khabib and Islam are going to probably be there. This guy's going to have the best coaching in the world, along with the wrestling. I think he could drag Horiguchi down to the ground. Kyoji's not a big guy. He's shorter. And like I said, he's shown flaws in that takedown defense. And I don't think he has like the volume on the feet or the big power on the feet to really change the pace of this fight at any point. I think he's going to be on the back foot. Tagir's going to be marching forward, throwing those kicks. He's a long fighter with his striking, and he's going to use that to get this fight up against the cage and from there just drag him down. Ultimately, I think Kyoji is very hard to submit or knock out. If anybody could do it, yes, Tagir could. So this is another one, man. Just to cover your ass, I think you take... Let me look what the line has moved to since. Tagir by sub is +400. I think that's something you sprinkle, and then just to cover you, I mean, I think you take Tagir by sub or decision at -185. So yeah, I'm going to take Tagir by sub +400 just to get, some money down on a bigger prop. And then for the main play to make the money, we'll do the buy sub or decision. Because, again, I don't think he's knocking out Horiguchi. I think, if anything, Tagir is going to look for any way possible to get this fight to the ground because he knows his coaches have been watching tape and they know exactly how to beat this guy, and that's the path to victory for him. So that's what we're rocking with for this fight. All right, a good one here, Shamil Gadzhiev and Waldo Cortez-Acosta. Waldo stepping in on 2 days' notice. Here's the thing. Waldo is flying across the world on a couple of days' notice. He doesn't have to cut a ton of weight. He's a heavyweight that probably doesn't have to cut any weight at all to get under 265. Yes, he's a good boxer. He's fast for a heavyweight and has shown that he's got some decent power. But what's he been doing in the offseason here, okay? He just had that fight not that long ago, a couple of weeks ago with he got his eye poked. The ref stopped the fight, then restarted it, and he got the knockout over Ante Dalia. I don't really know what he's been up to since, if he's been training, if he's in shape, in fight shape at least, or what's going to happen here. Shamil Gadzhiev taking that one loss to Martin Buday, but since then has shown good striking, has shown power, and if he's fighting a better striker than him, he's shown the ability to get takedowns, and I think he's very heavy on top and knows what he's doing down there too. If this was a full camp for Waldo Cortez-Acosta, I'd be very, very interested at taking him at -140 because of the striking, because, he'd be in there drilling takedown defense and game planning for this guy. But he's kind of got to just go out there and fight on instinct against Gadzhiev. There's no real game plan in 2 days. Yes, you can think it up, but you can't really drill anything in that short amount of time, especially when 24 hours is probably going to be dedicated to your travel there. So yeah, that's what kind of scares me off of Waldo Cortez-Acosta here. And you're getting Shamil Gadzhiev at plus money as an underdog. So that's what I'm rocking with here, man. I'll take a shot on Shamil. The GOAT, Gadzhiev, I think it's +120 still. Let me double check the app. +124. I think that's a decent line on him here, if I'm being honest. So that's what I'm rocking with in this spot. All right, next fight up. Jack Hermansson and Miktabek Oralbay. And This is another weird one. I was super shocked to see this fight, was made because Miktabek's been fighting at 155 pounds. Jack Hermansson obviously has been fighting at 185 pounds. And you're talking about an Oralbay who is probably a more of a true 170er. He's missed weight at 155. He's a big dude for that division. He's just kind of average size for 170, I'd say. But I have no idea how Jack Hermansson's going to get down to 170. The dude is thick at 185. He's a big dude for the division. He's getting a little bit older now, taking a lot of damage. I mean, he's coming off of one of the most brutal knockouts of the year against RoboCop, where he got flatlined, and RoboCop didn't have to, but walked up, probably the adrenaline pumping, and gave him an extra shot. Just absolute brutality. And, bouncing back, it's not like it was a short amount of time ago, but it wasn't forever ago either. So what was it, beginning of summer or something like that? So yeah, now you're coming up. Miktabek's not known for his striking, but I will say he can crack. He's hurt people before. If he catches you, he can put you out. But he's just a relentless style of fighter. And without a weight cut now, I think his energy is going to be up. He's going to be hard to deal with. And, Hermansson is a good wrestler, is a good grappler, a decent striker, not much power. So I think Miktabek can kind of eat some shots that get in close. And, maybe this is a spot where, Jack Hermansson, I'm not going to say finally finds a knockout because, Miktabek has shown super durability and toughness, but maybe Hermansson can get the striking a little bit going if he can keep it on the feet. This should be the one time that he should have a little bit of a striking advantage here over his opponents. I just have no idea what the size is going to do, what the strength difference is going to be. It's so hard to get a read on. And I don't know what the durability is like for Jack Hermansson anymore either. That's my big concern on his side. I'm looking what the lines are right now as far as props go. Here's my problem with taking. I want to pull the trigger on the under 2.5 so bad, but here's my problem with it is that Jack Hermansson, like I said, doesn't have much knockout equity, especially against the guy who's durable like Oralbay. But I do think Jack has sneaky submissions, good guillotines, can get into dominant positions and work from there. I think that's his finishing equity. And when you talk about Miktabek Oralbay, not known for being a striker, Jack is hard to submit. And, if he finishes the fight, I think he's got to do it by some kind of, big right hook or something that catches Hermansson just right. And maybe a bad weight cut attributes to some of that durability loss. So this one's hard to get a read on. I think you take Jack Hermansson plus 3.5, if I'm being honest, man. I really do. Yeah, that's what I'm going to rock with. I'm taking Hermansson on the spread plus 3.5. I think, at times when he keeps it on the feet, he's going to be doing the better work with the jab and stuff like that. And if he gets taken down, I think he's strong enough that he could possibly get back up and reset. And, you never know how the judges are going to score that type of stuff. So give me Hermansson on the spread plus 3.5, minus 105. Just got to win one round. He can lose the fight. As long as he wins one round, we're good in the clear. All right, next fight. Volkan Oezdemir taking on Alonzo Menifield. And Alonzo Menifield, Volkan's getting up there in age too, but Menifield, was he 37, 38 years old, 37? He hasn't, everybody talks about the power of Menifield, and it's kind of his difference maker in some of these fights, and it keeps him in some of these fights. And I will agree for sure. But not so much lately. I don't think he's had a knockout in 7 or 8 fights. It's been a while. He's got some knockdowns, yes, but lately, man, he's going to a razor-close split decisions with Julius Walker, who's making his debut, who just went life and death with Rafael Cerqueira, and just hasn't looked, didn't look phenomenal in that fight. Ate a lot of damage. Yes, he dished some out, but couldn't find the finish. He beat Umar Sy. I don't think Umar Sy is ever going to be a top 15, top 10 type of a fighter in the UFC. I think he's a little hesitant, just all around. He's just an average fighter to me. He gets knocked out by Azamat Murzakanov, gets knocked out brutally by Carlos Olberg in 12 seconds. So yeah, you take those last 4 fights, and now you're going up against the guy in Volkan Oezdemir, who's only lost to former champions and guys who have contended for the belts, and he's put, absolute ass kickings on guys like Johnny Walker and knocked him out. He beat Bogdan Guskov by submission after hurting him really badly on the feet. Volkan Oezdemir is going to be a much more technical striker here, and he's also In the grappling, I don't think Menifield's going to have a big advantage whatsoever. We'll be able to control him or get him down. So if you're stuck on the feet with Volkan Oezdemir, and he's much more technical, uses his kicks very well, and is more accurate with his striking, I think that spells a dangerous game for Alonzo Menifield. So I'm actually going to take Volkan Oezdemir to win this fight by finish. And right now that's plus 100. So we're getting plus money on it. I think more often than not, he goes out there and finishes Alonzo, especially at this stage of the career where Alonzo has, taken some damage, been knocked out a couple of times in his last 4 fights. Yeah, I think Oezdemir could definitely do that too. All right, co-main event, Ian Machado, Garry, Belal Muhammad. Here's the thing with Belal is I took him against Leon Edwards, and it was one of my favorite bets of all time because I got called an absolute idiot and crazy. The video went viral, and the whole comments were just clowning me before the fight, and they made excuses after the fight. But I took Belal because I figured his pressure, his wrestling would kind of get to Leon a little bit. I don't really see it with Ian. I think Ian is faster than Leon now. I think Ian's footwork is what allows him to fight fights where he wants them, unless you're fighting a Shavkat Rakhmonov or somebody like that, who Ian did very good against compared to everybody else who's fought Shavkat. Ian dictates where he wants to fight, and it all comes off of his footwork. We saw it against Carlos Prates. Prates had nothing for him until late in the fight when Ian, got clipped a little bit and hurt once. But Ian, he's a very durable guy. I'm not worried about Belal coming out here and boxing up Ian and hurting him and knocking him out. I'm not really worried about Belal taking him down and submitting him either. Ian Garry's been working at shoot to box with guys like Charles Oliveira. His grappling is getting very good. In fact, I could see Ian taking the back of Belal, kind of like Leon did in this fight, and implementing a little bit of jiu-jitsu himself in this spot too. Belal's 37 now. He's coming off of being the champ a year ago. It takes a lot out of you, man. It's a long road back to the top. It's discouraging after you lose that belt, and you're going up against Ian, who is hungrier than anybody in the division to get the belt or at least get a shot at it, and Belal standing in his way here. So I think this is an Ian Garry win. How does he get it done? Man, I'm not going to be surprised if Ian Garry knocks out Belal. I'll just say that. I know Belal is extremely tough and durable. He showed it against JDM, but he's starting to rack up a little bit of damage too. He's had a super, super long career, and Ian Garry is very sneaky with the high kicks. He's got very good striking. I think he's got sneaky power, and his technical striking is phenomenal too. His KO right now is plus 400. Excuse me. Let's see what his double chance prop is, because I don't know. I'm so back and forth on whether he knocks him out or if he goes to a decision. KO or decision is minus 250. Don't really want to mess with that. I think I'm going to take let's see. All right, we'll go Ian Garry by decision, minus 120. I think Belal still got some toughness in him, and I think Ian at times is a little bit lower volume because he's so methodical and technical to where I think he's going to just do anything he can to beat Belal here, just to get himself in that conversation for a title shot. So we'll take Ian Garry to win by decision, and I'll sprinkle that KO prop at plus 400 just in case. So the big play is going to be by decision, minus 120, and a little half unit or something on the KO just to cover our ass and just win a little bit of money if Ian ends up knocking him out. I like Ian Garry a lot this week. I actually parlayed him in Oezdemir for a 2-legger. It's like minus 102 or 103, I believe, or plus 102 or 103. I think both those guys have excellent paths to victory. All right, next fight, Arman Tsarukyan. I'm going to give you guys a longer shot play for this fight. Arman Tsarukyan versus Dan Hooker. Dan Hooker's notoriously been a tough out for everybody, right? He's got that tall man striking where he's super long, and if you want to wrestle him, knees up the middle, you got to watch out for. If he gets on top, he's nasty with the elbows, and he never quits on himself. We've seen him knocked out before. We've seen him submitted before, but it's tough to knock him out. My one problem with Dan Hooker is I think he's a phenomenal fighter. I bet him big as an underdog when he fought Gamrot. It's a close fight. I'm not going to say we got a robbery there, but we got away with one. But Arman Tsarukyan, I think is going to be able to get takedowns when he wants in this spot. And I think Arman's got phenomenal cardio. And Dan Hooker's been injured quite a bit. I always see him pictures in the hospital with like surgery on his hand or his arm or something like that. He's got business stuff going on outside of the UFC now. He knows he's probably not going and fighting for that top 3 spot that much longer. I mean, I think he's getting paid very well by the UFC. I think he likes money. But Arman Tsarukyan has this mission to get up to the top to fight either Ilya or if Islam were to come back down or something like that. And I think Arman's destined for it. I think he's a phenomenal fighter. Do I think he knocks out Dan? I think Dan's extremely, Michael Chandler did it, yes, but you watched the fight with Dustin Poirier and he couldn't do it. Dan has eaten some big shots in his day, and, it's hard to flatline him. And I don't think if Arman Tsarukyan does knock him down, I think he's going straight down to the ground, following him, wrapping him up, and trying to look for a sub. He's not really... that's where he's comfortable, is in the wrestling and the grappling. And yes, he could clip him and put him out cold, but I just see more often than not, that Arman gets the wrestling going or gets a knockdown and follows up with some control time for a minute, do a little bit of damage until Dan tries to get back up and expose his neck and Arman can look for submissions. I think you guys know where I'm going with this. I think a lot of people are expecting an Arman TKO, a KO, or a decision. I'm actually going to take the longest shot out of all 3 of those. I'm going submission at plus 330. I could see him wrapping up an arm triangle. I could see a rear naked choke, a guillotine, something like that. I mean, Dan, he's been taken down by a lot of guys. He's been submitted 3 times, I believe. So yeah, it's not like he hasn't been put in bad situations before by grapplers, and you're talking about one of the best in the world with Arman Tsarukyan, a guy who gave Islam a run for his money in the wrestling when they first fought in Arman's debut, or Islam's debut, whichever one it was. So yeah, to kick this card off, last fight on the card in the main event, plus 330, Arman Tsarukyan to win by submission. That's going to close out the show. I appreciate you guys once again. Last 3 weeks, we have absolutely crushed it. Let's make it 4 in a row. What was I going to say? I had something to tell you guys. Oh, yeah. Just to remind you that no UFC next week. We only got 2 cards left on the year. So for both cards, I'm going to do a giveaway. Make sure you hit a comment down below, like this video, and that you're subscribed, and I'll pick one person to give it away to when I talk to you guys next for the next UFC card. That's when we'll pick the winner. That's when we'll send it out. Appreciate you guys once again who show up week in, week out. I appreciate all the love in the comments. I appreciate all the hate as well. But we've been absolutely crushing. There's not much to hate on recently. Let's keep it going. I'll see you guys after the break. Let's make some money this week at UFC Qatar.